Godhead in that verses. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravana Mathuravasa Shri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevana. When Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Sanatan Goswami, Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravana Mathurava. You just have to now stop. If in case your YouTube video have started, just close that. So Srila Sanatan Goswami, or let's say Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while returning back from Vrindavan, when he met Sanatan Goswami at Kashi, and he taught him for 2 months, there he told him the essence. These are the 5 things that we got to do. Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha se kya hota hai? Guhyam Akhyati Prachati. You get to inquire and hear. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan, to chant the holy names of the Lord, to glorify the Lord. Bhagavat Shravan, hearing about the Lord. And Mathuravas, staying in a holy place. Shri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevan, and worshipping the deities. Please go to text number 22. Somebody read the translation. Anyone online would like to read the translation? Text number 22. Same verse as what Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to kya naam hai aapka? Sanatan Goswami. 4th canto, chapter number 22, text number 22, 4.22.22. Can anyone unmute themselves? Have you restricted that? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Gautam Prabhu. Take the mic.
Hare Krishna. Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshwara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves.
So exactly the same thing what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. So I just wanted to bring that point. Everyone is saying the same thing. All right, so we have discussed until text number 24 yesterday, and today we're going to start with text number 25. So just a quick recap of what's happening here. So these are the 5 things we got to do practically to be able to develop attachment for the Lord. And when we develop attachment for the Lord, simultaneously we cultivate detachment. That's the point. Then another important point we discussed yesterday is we have to strategize our life. Everyone has to mold their life accordingly in their own situation. It doesn't matter you're a grahastha, brahmachari, everyone, because we all have got our own psychophysical natures. We understanding that, plan out for ourselves how we can engage in these 5 activities on a regular basis. So then text number 24 is how can we make our mind more receptive to Krishna Katha? So for that, Sanat Kumar says he must be non-violent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, which means Guru Sadhu Shastra. Must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Lord, follow the regulative principles, and should not blaspheme either. This is very, this is something, you should memorize these things. Otherwise, we live our life very carelessly. Without material desires, and while following the regulative principles, should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the dualities of opposing elements. And finally, he should learn to tolerate them. This is how we can prevent our mind from becoming agitated. Why all these things are said, as we were discussing yesterday? Because if you don't do this, it's going to agitate your mind. If your mind is agitated, disturbed, you really cannot think about the Lord. I believe all of us would have had enough experience. And we had elaborate discussion on that yesterday. I really want to start now from 25th verse onward. So, okay, let's take a look at text number 25. Hare muhustatpara karnapura gunabhitanen vichrabhamanaya Bhaktya hi sanga sadasati anatmani Syanir gune brahmani chanjasaratihi Hare Muhustat Parakarnapura Gunabhitanena Vichrvamaniya Bhaktya Hya Sangha Sadasati Anatmani Syana Gune Brahmani Chanjasarati. These are very, very important verses, type of verses. So, text number 24, how to become receptive, how to make our mind fertile to, accept Krishna or to become attractive to Krishna. Text number 25, now Sanat Kumar says, how to become firm. Vaya vasayatmika buddhir ekya Guru Nandana. So, all of you know Bhagavad Gita, all of you memorize shlokas. How do you become firm? Don't show the translation. How do you become firm? You're living a simple life, okay. You're not blaspheming others, okay. Or you're following regulatory principles, okay. You're taking sadhu sangha, you're aligning with the instruction of Guru Sadhu Shastra, mind is fixed. How to become firm, which means determined. Stay determined. How many of you have an experience, when you come in an association of sadhus, you hear a lecture, inspiring lecture, at least for that amount of time, you find yourself, receptive to hear Krishna Katha. Or else you become very interested to hear more. But we all have an experience when we walk away, when we are back into our own space, then the determination fades away. So now, how to become receptive is okay. But question is how to remain receptive. For that, it requires determination. What is required for that determination? How to become firm? By? Okay, by regular hearing, very nice. What else? By disciplined life, very nice. What else? How to become firm? Daily morning program. Good, at least we are repeating the same thing, which is nice. So at least, it will strengthen our mind that, we'll memorize that we have to do this. Good, very nice. How do we become firm? What else? Is there a speaker on? If any online devotee want to say? The sound is tested, right? Yeah. How do we become firm? Anyone else? बस ट्रांसलेशन पढ़ के मत बोलना. कैसे होगा? By cultivating goodness, very nice. What else? All right, let's see what Sanat Kumar Prabhu has to say. Sanat Kumar Prabhu matlab Sanat Kumar. Okay, text number 25 translation. The devotee should gradually increase the culture of devotional service by constant hearing of the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who said hearing? Somebody said hearing, right? So he said hearing. But there is one very important thing. Not only hearing. What? Constant hearing. So how we can practice constant hearing is, we have these nice small jukeboxes. Keep that handy. Whenever there is some time having prasadam, you can play that. We spend good amount of time for bodily maintenance. That time you can play. Once Krishna Chandra Prabhu was speaking, he said, I every day hear, he's good Krishna Chandra Prabhu, I hope all of you know, from Chapati. He's saying, every day I made a practice to hear Srila Prabhupada lecture. Every day I would hear. They go ask Prabhuji, how do you do it? You're such a big businessman, such a big responsibilities. How do you find time to hear every day Prabhupada lecture? And a certain part of Guru Maharaj lecture. He said, we almost spend good 40 minutes in, bodily maintenance in the morning hours. Washroom and all that. So the moment I wake up, I switch on the lecture. Till the time I'm ready and come back. ठंडे ठंडे पानी से नहाना चाहिए. वो गाने की जगह हम क्लास सुन सकते हैं. Isn't it? Okay. Or if not, then mind would be anyways chatting something. So like that, those jukeboxes can be used. So that's for constant hearing, okay? Then these pastimes are like ornamental decoration on the ears of devotees. Second, by rendering devotional service, bhakti, and transcending the material qualities, one can easily be fixed in transcendence in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, 2-3 things have been highlighted. The hearing, this verse, in other words, to become firm, to become determined, the most important thing which is needed is constant hearing regularly. Again, all of us can reflect on it. I mean, it's such an important section. If you want, you can do a little homework on it. Just like the discussion that we had yesterday and what we're going to have now for the next few more verses. And think about how Srila Prabhupada gave us a culture and lifestyle based on what Sanat Kumar is saying here. Question is very simple and straightforward. There is no one or two questions. There is only one question: how to attain the ultimate goal of life. We have all come for that purpose. And Sanat Kumar is giving an answer here. Now, while reading this answer, meditate on this, read Prabhupada's purpose, and now ask yourself a question and answer that. How did Srila Prabhupada created a culture for us? What all did he emphasize? And many of those things we might have questioned in the beginning. Like many times people say in the beginning, why do chant on the beads only? Why can't I just chant like this? Why do we have to hear in the morning? Can I just not hear any time? So those doubts will get clarified when you read this section and think about why Prabhupada emphasized on certain thing like that. So Prabhupada writes to the purpose, this verse is especially mentioned to substantiate the devotional process of hearing the subject matter. A devotee does not like to hear anything other than the subjects dealing with the spiritual activities or the pastimes or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada goes on speaking about that. The more we hear, the more we become attached. And then Prabhupada says, therefore a devotee who actually wants to make progress in bhakti, go back home, back to Godhead, must lose interest in sense enjoyment and associating with persons who are after money and sense gratification. We spoke about it, when we get into this association, that could be even our family members. How do you purify yourself from contamination? And this is the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Niskinchanasya Bhagavat Bhajan Mukhasya Param Jigmisho Bhava Sagarasya Sandarshanam Vishinam Matayoshitam Cha Ha Hanta Hanta Vishabhak Santopi Asadho. Beautiful verse. The word Brahmani used in this verse is commented upon by the impersonalists or professional reciters of Bhagavatam. We can have a proper chair. I don't know how comfortable would that be. Can you have a chair? If there are any chairs over there? So anyways, you can read the translation for the later on. Okay, text number 26 and 27. So after giving the whole science of bhakti, what to do, what not to do in that way, the question that comes is, what result will I get if I do this? The process that has been discussed so far. Text number 26 says so. Yadharate brahmani nashtaki puman Acharya vangyana viragaram hasa Dahati aviryam hridayam jivakosham Panchatmakam yonim iva uthito agni. Upon being fixed in this attachment to the Lord by the grace of the spiritual master and by awakening knowledge and detachment, Jnana, Vairagya, the Jiva, situated within the heart of the body and covered by the 5 elements, burns up his material surroundings exactly as fire, arising from wood, burns the wood itself. What it means is the subtle body is destroyed. Reading the last few lines of the purport, really at the bottom, 5th or 6th last line. An advanced devotee therefore does not live within the material body, but within his spiritual body, just as a dry coconut is detached from the coconut husk, even though within the husk. It's a very beautiful analogy Prabhupada gives. You understand coconut? So when coconut is wet, it's connected with the shell. When it becomes dry, you move it, it makes khat-khat sound because it has become detached. So what's the state of an advanced individual or practitioner? He's like in the body, but has got nothing to do with the body. An example is dry coconut. And our material life is like wet coconut. Interesting, huh? Filled with material juice, suffering. So it's an analogy Prabhupada gives here. The pure devotee's body is therefore called Chinmaya Sharira. In other words, the devotee's body is not connected with material activities, and as such, a devotee is always liberated. Srila Rupa Goswami also confirms this. Iha yasya hare dase karmana manasa gira nihila sobi avasthasu jivan mukta sa uchyate. Whatever his condition may be, one who is engaged fully with his body, mind, and speech in the service of the Lord is Jivan Mukta. So, what happens is your subtle body is destroyed. That's the first result. Text number 27. Dagdhashayo mukta somasta tadguno Naivatmano bhairantar vichashtate Paratmano yad vayavadhanam purasta Swapne yatha purushastad vinashve. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, he transcends distinctions between actions executed externally and internally. At that time, the difference between the soul and the supersoul, which was existing before, is annihilated. Now, this sounds like Mayapur. No. Whenever this kind of ekatvam or oneness is mentioned, is in quality, is in interest. That's the idea. The difference between the soul and the super soul, which is existing, is annihilated. So Mayavadi interpretation would be you become one. The Atma has become Paramatma. And that too Prabhupada have put it this way. If you go to the actual Sanskrit, it will look like Atma has become Paramatma. No, that's the idea of ekatvam, which means you become one in interest, one in quality. When a dream is over, therefore, there is no longer a distinction between the dream and dreamer. Prabhupada speaks about this oneness principle at the end of the purport. Okay? So this is the result of it. Now text number 28 onwards, Sanat Kumar will continue to speak now further. First of all, highlighting what actions needs to be done to develop attachment towards the Lord and to become detached from the material desires of the bodily concept of life, defining what would be the result. Now he'll talk about the comparison between devotees, bhaktas, spiritualists, and those who are non-spiritualists, karmis. What is their life looks like. Okay, text number 28. Bhogi versus yogi in that way. Text number 28. Atmanam vidriyatam cha param yad uvayorapi sati ashasya padho vai puman pashatinam yada. When the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires, and for that reason he becomes subjected to designations. But when one is in the transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. What a verse. You getting what is Sanat Kumar saying here? Upadhi is a very commonly used word. Sarvapadhi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam. Rishikena rishikesha sevana bhaktir uttamam. When you engage in the service of the Rishikesh, who is Rishikena, controller of the senses, you get free from all designation. Sarv upadhi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam. Nirmalam means pure, like that. So, what is the meaning of sarv upadhi vinirmuktam? Becoming freed from all designations. What are designations? What are upadhis? Huh?
Bodily consciousness.
Correct. Or define more, which is correct. Bodily concept. I am the body. That's an upadhi. Correct. So that's precisely that way. What else?
I'm Indian, I'm American.
Yeah, I am Indian. Now that's an extension. Correct. I'm Indian. What else? Upadhi.
Father.
I'm father. I'm temple president. That's also designation. Even in life of bhakti, I am TMC member. Well, that's again very gross bodily concept, which is true, which is the the foundation of it. I'm just going a little more external, which is that man and woman thing kind of thing is only has to be purified. But at least this idea that I am this and that I'm Indian, still intellectually we can work around. So just kind of touch upon. Any other upadhis? So positions, relationships, anything in relationship body that you do, from the bodily consciousness leads to upadhi. That's the point. Even in your devotional service, if you're doing from the point of bodily consciousness, what is bodily consciousness? What's in for me? Trying to gratify the senses. It leads to upadhi. You getting it? So not the temple president is an upadhi, but the person sitting on a temple president role, a person sitting on the role of a management, can make it as an upadhi if he's using that position for his own gratification. But even in that upadhi, if he's having the intent, I am the servant, that upadhi does not affect. That's the difference. That's the point it is mentioned. Atmanam idyatam. So he's no longer interested. So best way, therefore, dasanudas. Whatever position, servant of the servant of the servant. So whoever we are in, whatever position we may be, the best identity, intent to function and to work is, I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. What I'm saying is, you try to see from this point of view, let's say if in case you have observed the life of your spiritual master or any other senior Vaishnava, or maybe Prabhupada, you've read about Prabhupada's life, you see would they function this way or not. Whatever, let's say Srila Prabhupada was a world acharya, but what was his actual upadhi with which he acted? Servant of the servant of the servant. So the reporter asked, what is your contribution? What have you done? So Prabhupada said, well, I have just copy-pasted. I have just repeated the words of my Guru Mahārāja. I just want you to fathom this. We read this, but for a second, let's do this quick exercise. Imagine you have become a famous preacher, to a category of world famous preacher. Your books are selling in millions. Let's say motivational speaker. There are many motivational speakers out. You've written some book and your book has become bestseller. People reading your book and their lives are getting transformed. Their bad habits are just flying out of the window. And then somebody asks, so whose contribution it is? What do you think? What will you say? How many of you, it will be very difficult to say, it is not mine. How many of you will say, yes, of course I did it. Please raise your hand. This is very basic human nature, isn't it? When Prabhupada said, I'm just trying to help you understand, we read and hear it, we don't get the intent behind it. When Prabhupada said, I've just repeated the words of my Guru Maharaj, he gave whole credit to Guru Maharaj. What it mean? I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. This is how it interesting. All right. So that's the intent. If we try to cultivate, then we can save ourselves from the point of view of this upadhi. Okay. Text number 29. Nimitte satti sarvatra jaladao avipurushah atmanascha parasyaha pi bhidam pashyati nanyada. So, what is the vision? So, text number 29, actually very beautiful verse again. Here now, Sanat Kumar gives an analogy, beautiful analogy. Only because of different causes does a person see a difference between himself and other. Just as one sees the reflection of a body appearing differently manifested on water. You imagine standing by the side of the lake, you see a reflection on an oil or in a mirror. Does something like this Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita? Huh? Udhamula, nahi, the 15th chapter. Something like this, similarly like this Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Third
Hare
chapter.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Yes,
Hare
Mother.
Krishna. He talks about lust covering like
Yes.
smoke and a mirror covered by dust and the Atma covered, the body covered by the womb.
The child covered by the womb. So,
Child
third chapter, verse number 37. How the lust covers a person? This is what Krishna says. And here is the same thing. How our vision is covered over? Just like you see the reflection. This is goodness, passion, ignorance. That is all. So, point is how your perception is colored by modes. Accordingly, you perceive yourself in different roles. That's what Sanat Kumar says here. That's the reason we all have different experiences governed by the moods. Now, text number 30 to 34 will talk about, Sant Kumar will say, what is the consciousness of a person absorbed in sense gratification? Okay, anyways, we are familiar with it. Let's give some example. What do you think would be the consciousness of a person absorbed in sense gratification? Quick. Yes. Self-oriented, self-centered. Okay, fine. What else? Exploitive by default. Okay. Exploitative. Okay. Envious. Okay. Competitive. We should envy. Exploitation. Okay. What else? Arrogance. Okay, Mother Sundari Priya.
I am the enjoyer.
I'm the enjoyer, controller, proprietor. Okay, very nice. What else? Greed. What else?
Lording over the multitude.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, controller, proprietor, enjoyer. Correct. Okay, I'm just saying because you all know of this. Now, when we read next few verses, you'll be more attentive. Otherwise, the translation खत्म हो जाएगी. हम पूछेंगे क्या था subject matter. So I'm doing that because there's a core philosophy going on here right now. Text number 30. I'll read the translations now. Okay, Mother Sundari says egocentric. Good. When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the very first thing I guess we all missed out, the mind becomes agitated. The mind remains disturbed. And yesterday I was speaking about the contamination. And you remember what I was saying yesterday? Actually, we all should be floating in bliss, what we have received, without having any adhikar. Who's qualified to hear Bhagavad Gita? Raj Rishi. हम कौन से ऋषि हैं, कौन से राजा हैं? You know, I'm not saying Bhagavad Gita says so, isn't it? We should be idly floating in bliss. But why it's not happening? Okay, how many of you really had an experience of bliss? How many of you ever had an experience in bliss? You're in some yatra, kirtan, someday, and your heart was filled with bliss and gratitude. Like, there is nothing better than this. How many of you had that experience? Please raise your hand. Every one of us have had that experience. That's the reason we are here today. Question is, why it's not there every day? That's the reason I discussed at length yesterday. The reason is not there because it's unavoidable now, because we're in this world. It's no one's fault. We are in this world, and particularly all of you. In fact, us, I have to also go and meet with people, who are not into this, not in this Krishna consciousness. So contaminations do flow. So understanding that, we need to apply ourselves more strictly. That was the whole point, to purify ourselves from the contamination. Okay, so first thing is the mind becomes agitated. As a result of continued thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost. Like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. Another beautiful analogy now they're going to give. So, what is happening is, somebody who is so absorbed in sense gratification, they literally lose all their consciousness. Can you give an example of any living entity which represents this? Whose consciousness is completely absorbed in sense gratification. It begins at okay, let me put it, if in case any one of you ever had a relapse, you understand? Krishna consciousness, you're doing something and suddenly you fell down, So it begins with a very small thing. When it begins, let's say watching a movie, for example. Not watching a movie, let's say watching a trailer. You say, yeah, theek hai, trailer dekh rahe hain, kya hai? And still there's a discrimination power. You think, no, it's not good and all that. From trailer it begins. Dhyayatu Vishnu, that whole thing happens. Then you may end up watching a movie. Then you may think, okay, I'll just watch first half an hour. I just want to see what is the plot line. That begins from there. Dhyayatu Vishnu Sangate Subjayate. You're still having some discrimination. Nahi, mujhe nahi karna. I have chanting to do, I have this service to do. And then half an hour turns to 1 hour, 1 hour turns to 3 hours. You've entirely forgotten everything. You don't remember. Anyone have that as an experience? That is a point of here how your consciousness, when it gets engaged in sense object, it becomes completely lost. Which living entity represents that amongst the 8.4 million species? Elephant, okay. I don't know why did you say elephant. Shikaru has to elaborate that.
Because it gets into dust, again takes up.
Okay, that's a foolish act. That's not in terms of consciousness, that's a foolish act.
Camel?
No, the trees. Because their consciousness is entirely dull. No experience of it. Why our क्या नाम है अभी दामोदर लीला हुई ना अभी आज आखिरी दिन है you had this our Nal Kuvera Mani Kripa. Why they were cursed by Narad Muni to become the trees? Because he said your consciousness become totally dull, you have no respect. A sadhu is standing here, you're still naked. You become like tree because you become so insensitive because of your engagement in sense gratification. So next time you see the trees, be aware. Okay. So anyways, so as a result of continuous thinking of sense, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost. Another beautiful analogy is given here. Like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. Prabhupada explains this in the last paragraph, the puppet, or the last pair of the puppet. The example given here is very appropriate. If a big lake is covered all around by long kusha grass, just like columns, the waters dry up. Similarly, when the big columns of material desires increase, the clear water of consciousness is dried up. Which means our thinking, willing, feeling, and our intellectual ability to discriminate, that just ceases to exist. Therefore, these columns of kusha grass should be cut or thrown away from the very beginning. We say it, nip it in the bud. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed that if from the very beginning we do not take care of unwanted grass in the paddy fields, the fertilizing agents of water will be used by them and the paddy plants will dry up. The material desire for sense enjoyment is a cause of our fall down in this material world, and thus we suffer the threefold miseries and continuous birth, death, old age, disease. This is the whole idea of. So what are we supposed to purify? There's only one thing that we purify, that is desires. Of course, we purify our body. When we do deity worship, we do achman, we take bath and all that. But that is for cultivating goodness. What we're trying to aspire to purify is our desires. Text number 31. What happens when one loses their original consciousness? What was our original consciousness? Krishna consciousness. So what happens when we lost our original consciousness? What happens when we forgot Krishna? Sanat Kumar answers in text number 31. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. Very profound. I'll share some thoughts soon. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost. You're getting some clue here? What is happening here? We're talking about sense gratified, self-centered, you said, right, Apurva? Selfish or self-centered. What is selfish and self-centered, in other words? Again, too much driven by the mind, whims of the mind and senses. Not right. Do you agree such people, how much ever they may receive, for them to be grateful is very difficult, but because they just don't remember what they received, they only remember what they gave. Yes or no? What is being written here? He loses the capacity to remember his previous position or even recognize his present one. Previous position for all of us. His Holiness Radhanath often speaks on one particular subject, gratitude. Because unless we attempt to cultivate gratefulness or gratitude, we'll not be really able to come to this level of consciousness, revive our consciousness. Why? The capacity to remember his previous position. What do you mean by previous position is, okay, life in this world is never going to be easy. When we come to Krishna consciousness, again, we have to deal with people around. It's not that necessarily only they have fault, we also have a fault. There is a conflict, then there is a conflict because of modes of material nature, and then it depends on how much contamination you're taking because of bad association, that could be even your family members and whatnot. So all those factors affect us, affect our consciousness, we get into conflicts, we have this and that. Now, Prabhupada would often say, he would often write in his letters, always remember what you were before you took to Krishna consciousness. Just if we can remember that, how much we should be grateful of whatever we are. I asked the other day, let me ask this question to all of you. If everything is taken away from us, still there is one thing that cannot be taken away from you by anyone. And if that one thing is there with you, because that's in your control, you and I, we still got to be grateful. How much ever the world may turn away, how much ever the ISKCON may turn away, how much ever the devotees may turn away and may leave you. But there is one thing still, all your services may be taken away, but there is one thing, one service you will still have with you. That is your right, your prerogative. And if you still have that, you still owe to be grateful. Even in that situation, that is chanting. Nobody can take chanting away from you. Even if the physical ability, even the material nature have taken away the physical ability, you can still chant within your mind. Even in that situation, we are supposed to be grateful. Not supposed to be, actually we need to be grateful. Why? Because what right do we have, to chant the names of the Lord? Now, if you understand the glories of the Lord, then you'll understand what I'm trying to say. So that's the whole idea. So he loses the capacity to remember his previous position. Now, you see, for example, you read prayers by Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Acharyas. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says, I am worse than a worm in a stool. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes that song, Amara Jivan, that famous song. This is very interesting, isn't it? How are they reflecting and saying, my life had been only sinful? Here, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who gave us Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, is saying, I am so insignificant. Only understanding that I have in this regard is, I've shared this example before, in one of the very first Pradinath Yatra, I remember early in the morning around 4:30, I was sitting behind the Badri Vishal shrine and I was chanting there. And by 5:30, when the sunshine came, it was so dark when I went there, I just couldn't see anything except for the shrine. I didn't knew even there is a mountain ahead. But when the sunshine came, so I'm sitting behind, there's a shrine and there's this Naranayan Parvat. And that Parvat was so tall, although we are already on so much height. This was just, I was thinking that time. I was just thinking, now we are on the height. There's nothing else. But from behind the shrine, when the sunshine rays fell on the mountain was disappearing up in the sky. I remember sitting there, I realized, I said, this is not Narayan Parvat, this is Narayan in one sense. How tiny as a creature. And what do you talk about then Garbhodak Vishnu? Then what do you talk about Karana Daksha Vishnu like that? So this is very interesting. In other words, those who are approaching, becoming more Krishna conscious, they would have few things, their understanding of their insignificance. That idea of I do it, I am the doer, I can do it will not exist. Second thing, by default, they would be grateful. This is how the devotees pray. Mother Kunti in that situation can say, Vipadashantu taha shashvat tatra tatra jagat guru. This cannot be said by anyone who has any, concern for one's comfort and convenience. Who would ask the Lord? Anyways, Lord name is Hari. It is by default known, Hari will, someday will har lega. On top of it, then you pray. Take off any of those things. So this is how the consciousness is being described. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity. I hope I'm making some sense here. What I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to reflect from here is, when we are making advancement, it's but natural to become grateful. When we're making advancement, it's but natural to become humble. Not to act humble, but to genuinely feel humble. It's just but natural. And such a person is grateful because he remembers what he was, where is he now, and because of what. But what happens when remembrance is lost? All knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the lost soul is lost. So that's an influence of contamination. One thing for which, as a Vaishnavas, we can be very careful. Even if you are very careful of living a pure life, there is still one risk that can affect you, that can distract us. Any thought what could be that? Yes? No, I'm talking pure life. You're living pure life. There's no pride, there's no arrogance, you're humble, grateful, everything. You're doing all good. But there's one thing that can still affect you and distract you. You're not done anything. Even you have not committed an aparadh. Don't say aparadh. You have not done anything. You're all doing good. But there is one thing that can still distract you. Association, okay? No. You are doing all good. There's no problem with you. You're progressing nicely. Despite you doing everything nicely, there is one thing that can still distract us. Fourth canto, chapter number 2, Daksha's Sabha, assembly. You know how the Brahmanas, the sages have got and fought with the Shiva's followers? The Brahmanas had no issues. The Shiva followers had no issues. They were all doing fine. Everything was properly situated in their position. Only one person had a problem. Who was that person? Daksha. Because he blasphemed, while others heard the blasphemy. I have not blasphemed, but because I heard the blasphemy, everyone got cursed. So I'm just, these are things which are very common these days. Social media, ऋत्विक लोग तो वैसे ही बैठे रहते हैं इसी issues पे क्या चल रहा है. So we have to be very careful. So you may think, oh, everything is going good, everything is going good, I'm doing everything nice. But if in case we get to hear, and if we don't clarify that or we don't fix it in time, we don't have to take a remedial measure for it, even in that situation, our whole spiritual life can get troublesome. Okay? So this is about consciousness. This is how gentle and sensitive this matter of consciousness is. How you have to be careful about I should share those details in the purport. Text number 32. There is no stronger obstruction to one's self-interest than thinking that other subject matters to be more pleasing than one's self-realization, to take anything else more important than self-realization and Krishna consciousness. That's an obstruction. Text number 33. For human society, constantly thinking of how to earn money and apply it for sense gratification brings about the destruction of everyone's interest. So we're talking about what is the consciousness of a person absorbed in sense gratification. So they take every other subject matter apart from Krishna consciousness or self-realization is important. They're always thinking about how to earn money, how to enjoy life, and that brings about the destruction of one's self-interest. When one becomes devoid of knowledge and devotion service, he enters into a species of life like those of trees and stones. So another species is stones, dull consciousness, and trees like that. Again, beautiful purpose you can read out. Okay, text number 34. Those who strongly desire to cross the ocean of nescience must not associate with the modes of ignorance. For hedonistic activities are the greatest obstructions to realization of religious principles, economic dharma, dharma, kama, moksha. Okay, as a devotees, how can we take a precaution or reduce our contact with mode of ignorance? Those who strongly desire to cross over the ocean of nescience must not associate with the modes of ignorance. How a devotee can try to minimize their contact with mode of ignorance? Anyone? Yes, Shekhar Prabhu?
Wake up in Brahma Muhurta.
Wonderful. Wake up in Brahma Muhurta. What else? What can be done to reduce our contact with mode of ignorance? Okay, yeah, okay, constantly hearing. All right, what else? On day-to-day life, okay? That's the thing we strive to do on day-to-day life, which you can do it right now, even today. Yes, Bhagavat Prabhu?
Usage of social media.
Okay, you say social media. Okay. Taking to time paths. Okay. What else? The Brahmanical lifestyle. What else? Eating food. That all of you are doing. That's prasadam. I'm saying all of you. This is what all of you are doing. But there is still one thing that you can do by reducing the contact. By sleeping early. How many of you would agree? The later we sleep, the more our mind gets agitated and tempted. Please raise your hand. That's the point. Even all of you, properly situated, practicing devotees with all good intent and actions, yet we become trapped. So Brahma Muhurta to naturally hoga if you sleep early. And I have seen this so much. I've seen this. Therefore, I have said, I guess I made this point before also. After 9 o'clock, unless there's a managerial discussion, I don't get into any counseling discussion. That's the worst time to resolve anyone's conflict. उसका confidence खत्म होगा नहीं होगा, अपना confidence खराब हो जाएगा, you know. Push it for the next day, push it for the next day. So if we sleep early, that would save us from so many problems, so many problems. You know, even for me, that's also so much true. Okay, text number 35. You can write down some action items. These are the Sanat Kumar teachings, which you can see how you can apply in your daily life. There are little things we can make a change and can help us so much. Text number 35. तत्रापि मोक्ष एवाथा आत्यांति कटयिष्यते त्रयीवर्ग्यो अर्थो यतो नित्यं कृतान्त भय संयुतः. The most important thing, one of the four, out of the four principles, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, he says the most important is moksha. Why? Dharma, artha, kama, they all are material, they'll get destroyed. Text number 36. We accept as blessings different, okay. Now Sanat Kumar says the same thing what Lord Shiva said, ka sapa anuragaha. Lord Shiva spoke to Mother Parvati, same thing he says. What are these temporary blessings and curses? Somebody gets a promotion, they're so excited about it. Somebody have a 50th marriage anniversary, they're so excited about it. What is so thing? This is all temporary. You know, somebody gets married, so excited about it. You know, so these are all temporary things. We accept as blessings different states of our life, distinguishing them from lower states of life. But we should know that such distinctions exist only in relation to the interchange of the modes of material nature. Actually, these states of life have no permanent existence, for all of them will be destroyed by the Supreme Controller. So Sanat Kumar has already said in the previous verse, the most important thing is moksha. From that platform, when you're talking about from the point of view of liberation, so now Sanat Kumar is saying anything and everything, what we aspire in material life is useless because it's all temporary. Of course, in practical life action, I've already discussed yesterday, you know, we all are householders or those who are working, you have your certain desires, aspiration to take care, responsibility to take care. But someday in our life we'll come to this situation. And therefore, yesterday I was making a point, we got to strategize our life. You know, we are in this age, understand what your family needs, what's the plan for the family. Okay, in this many years, I need to have this much amount of money with me or to be able to live a simple life. I mean, this culture is not here, at least in Jawadi, I don't think so all of you would have that. But I'll tell you, in America, I was giving an example. Anyone has to buy anything new, there used to be so much social pressure. What community will think about you? I don't know if you were there in Dallas, you had that experience, Anandapu? A little about this? I don't know about this, you know. It's so much, everyone will observe. And I had to buy a car. Man, there was so much, you know, should I buy a new car? Should I buy an old car? I was saying yesterday also, I ended up buying a car, 10-year-old car, only for $5,000 US. $5,000 is only, no, right? I believe, you know, I mean, I don't know, somebody should not say what you're saying. Indian currency, it could be much. How much? Today would be 5 lakhs or something? You know, that time it was 40 rupees when I was in America. $5,000 US means 2 lakh rupees. Okay. You know, when you have salary, I had a salary close to 1 CR, Indian currency that time. In that way, उसमें से 2 लाख रुपए की गाड़ी लेना यार. No, and all my friends had, you know, Ferrari, Mercedes Benz, so S-class, expensive cars, those kind of thing. I don't know whatever models are there. I remember I used to drive 10-year-old Nissan Maxima. And I very proudly tell, so everyone asked, कितने का है? प्रभु जी, $5,000 है प्रभु जी. तो हाँ, अच्छा. You know, there was a lot of social pressure. Yeah. So that, you know, you live a simple life. Don't waste money. Don't spend things like that. Anyways, so yeah. But we should know that such distinction, anyways, I lost my thought what I was saying. But we should know that such distinction exists only in relation to the interchange of the modes of matter nature. I remember one of our temple committee member, he bought a big car. It was really a big car. Man, that fellow, he got so much comments. Na? He chose to come walking to the temple, but he will not bring the car. And he said, no, not. And you know, he used to do so much service. He's a doctor, and doctors are not a lot there, you know. And he would serve also, he would contribute also a lot. But once in a while he thought, now I should at least fulfill one of my desire. I'm living in America for the last 15 years. At least one good car I should have. He has a big car, he got it. He got so many comments from devotees. I remember he would never bring his car to the temple. He'll park it somewhere, he'll walk so that nobody sees his car. Those kind of culture used to be there. Anyways, it's good in one way, then you have this fear now. So if you sense gratification, में जाते नहीं आता. Otherwise, there's always a chance you go here and there. Okay, so that's about text number 36. So yeah, these are temporary goals. These are not real blessings. That's what Sanat Kumar says. Text number 37. Beautiful purpose. I'm not getting into it. Please read it out. We'll discuss these details in our Bhakti Vaibhav. Text number 37. Now he says, Sanat Kumar says, so what we should do, we should try to understand the Lord. Text number 37, 38 talks about understanding the Lord, Paramatma, and text number 39 is Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavatam. He gives the definition of the best thing is pure devotional service. These are the three verses. Let's take a look. Sanat Kumar advised the king, therefore, my dear King Pṛthu, try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within everyone's heart, along with the individual soul in each and every body, either moving or not moving. The individual souls are fully covered by the gross material body and subtle body made of the life, air, and intelligence. So everyone should try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada is in the purport. Very first line. In this verse, it is specifically advised that instead of wasting time in the human form of life, endeavoring for economic development, sense gratification, one should try to cultivate spiritual values by understanding the Supreme Lord. Text number 38. The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself as one with the cause and effect within this body. One who has transcended the illusory energy by deliberate consideration, which clears the misconception of a snake for a rope, can understand the Paramatma is eternally transcendental to the material creation, situated in pure internal energy. Thus the Lord is transcendental to all material contamination. Unto him only must one surrender. This is a very important verse to defunct Mayavad theory. But all of you understand Paramatma from Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, so I'm just moving forward. We'll take this verse as the last verse, text number 39. Beautiful and important verse. Another verse which talks about pure devotional service definition. Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Anavartam Anukulyana Krishnanusheelana Bhaktir Uttamam. Please everyone recite after me. Yat Pada Pankaj Palasha Vilasa Bhaktya Karmashayam Gratitam Udgatyanti Santaha. Little loudly. Tadvanna riktamatayo yatayo pirudha. Shruto ganatamaranam bhajavasudevam. Yadpada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya. Karmashayam gratitam udgatyanti santaha. Tadvanna riktamatayo yatayo pirudha. Shruto ganatamaranam bhajavasudevam. Yat pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya. Karmashayam gratitam udgatyanti santaha. Tadvanna riktamatayo yatayo pirudha. Shruto ganatamaranam bhajavasudeva. Word to word meaning? Yat, whose, pad, feet, pankaja, lotus, palash, petals or toes, vilas, enjoyment, bhaktya, by devotion service, karma, fruitive activities, ashayam, asha, desire, grathitam, hard knot, udgratyanti, root out, santaha, devotees, tat, that, what, like, na, never, riktamattayaha, persons devoid of devotional service, yatayaha, ever increasingly trying, api, even though, ruddha, stopped, shrotaganaha, the waves of sense enjoyment, tam, unto him, aranam, worthy to take shelter, bhaj, engage in devotional service, vasudevam, unto Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. This can be memorized. Translation: the devotees are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord. Yat pada pankaja palas vilasya bhaktya. That's the idea. Toes can very easily overcome the hard, knotted desire for fruitive activities. When it is said, this is Sanat Kumar saying hard knotted, it is not like something I am saying hard knotted. We may say anything and many things. When Sanat Kumar is saying hard knotted means it's really hard. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult. Because this is very difficult. The non-devotees, jnani, yogis, all the trying to stop the waves of sense gratification cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotion service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So only bhaktyamam abhijanati yavaniyascha asmi tatvataha. So through devotion service. I'll read the purport. There are three kinds of transcendentalists: jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. All of them attempt to overcome the influence of the senses, which is compared to the incessant waves of a river. The waves of a river flow incessantly, and it is very difficult to stop them. Similarly, the waves of desire for material enjoyment are so strong, they cannot be stopped by any process other than bhakti yoga. Any thoughts, any reflections? All of you have been practicing for years together. We have some idea, let's say, all of you have taken part in, we will have this Gita Jayanti Yajna. So there are transcendentalists whose whole day job is Yajna. Every day they do Yajna for hours together. This is there. Satyuga had the process. Okay. Some do long hours of pranayam, then dhyan, etc. And then these people renounce everything. They go to the forest. They live very simple. They eat very little, and have very disciplined, regulated life and whatnot. And then here we are, literally enjoying the life. How many of you agree? Since we have come to ISKCON, our consumption of sweets have increased exponentially. We are modern yogis. We live on gulab jamun and rabadi. Recently, what did Ravi Shekhar Prabhu had? Some special item? Malai tukda. Shahi tukda. नॉर्थ में हम लोग खाते थे, कहते हैं संडे को मदर बनाया करती थी, ब्रेड को रोस्ट करते थे फ्राई करके. आई नेवर हैड मलाई टुकड़ा. टुकड़ा तो होता था, माँ ने मलाई कभी नहीं खिलाई उसके साथ. सो ऑपुलेंट करके. So we are eating so opulent, and the point is, the more opulent you eat, the more senses become agitated. Vachavekam, Manasakrodavekam, Jivavekam, we read that. We are doing so much sense gratification, yet it is said through bhakti, you can control easily, comparatively. I just want you to reflect and introspect. How is it possible? How does it work out? How many of you are struggling with managing desires? Please raise your hand. This is a valid question for all of us. We need faith that bhakti can do that. So how bhakti can do that? How bhakti can actually help us transcend? We may not be there now, but at least to have faith in the process would help us move forward. That's the point I'm saying. How bhakti can do that. And maybe that's the area which we need to focus and work upon for ourselves. Yes, Abu Govind Prabhu?
The intention with which we do particular activity, if the intention is to please the Lord, then that same activity becomes God conscious.
No, that's not my question. How bhakti helps us control our desires? How through bhakti alone, said it is very difficult to stop the waves of a river flowing incessantly, which means the desires. Similarly, the waves of desire for material are so strong they cannot be stopped by any process other than bhakti yoga. Through Bhakti Yoga, the material desires will not happen only.
So they get doubted.
What's you saying? Dovetail. Idea is purified. So purification happens to Jnana also, to Karma Yoga also, to Ashtanga Yoga also. Then Bhakti Yoga में purification हो रहा है. What's the difference? But Jnana Yoga में भी तो purification होता है. You study scriptures, you're purifying your intelligence, and then you come to the Dhyan Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. Yama, वो प्राणायाम क्यों करते हैं? Is to control the prana, na? Not only control, it's to purify the prana. Long hours. So purification is happening everywhere. Then how bhakti? Why bhaktis?
Prabhuji, can I say?
Yeah, who is speaking?
Shama Vallavi.
Yes, mother.
Prabhuji, I feel that, when we do perform bhakti, we are doing everything for the pleasure of Lord, and we are also trying to please our Guru. So we are doing everything for the desire of Guru and Krishna. Other than focusing on our desires, we're focusing more on the desires of Guru and Krishna.
Yeah, actually, which is the objective? We
So
should do
that's
that,
how
but
we
in our
can control our
correct.
desires also, because our desires go backhand rather than, coming to the forefront.
Okay, that should be the how we should function. Perfect. So that we can do that. Okay, what else? But still, the challenge which I see here is in my current contaminated state, it's an objective to be able to serve tomorrow where I do everything for the pleasure. But right now, everything that I do, I look also a lot for my pleasure and convenience and comfort. And that's the point I was speaking on the Govardhan lecture. What's the difference between the four bhaktas which Bhagavad Gita Krishna glorifies so much, magnanimous, but what's the difference in Braj Bhakti? So what else? What else could be? You're on the right path. Yes, Pajani Prabhu?
Is transcendental process.
And therefore we all are called transcendentalists.
And these other
Which
two
is true.
processes, we are the hero. We have to do that. But bhakti is ultimately taking the shelter of Supreme. So Supreme has to take care of us. What we are doing, we are just making him happy so he can control our senses and he can purify us.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
So it's easy comparatively because in other process you have to endeavor.
Yeah.
Here we function on grace.
Yes.
Okay. Just one word. Who has not spoken? Yes, Anandaram Prabhu.
Bhakti uproots these desires from the bijam.
Yeah, that's what theory says, which is true. It's going to happen. We are working on that faith only, which is true. But what exactly happens? What is that one thing? Yes.
In Bhakti, we are continuously engaged in the devotional service.
Continuously. We have to come to that stage, but theek hai.
So that is the means in.
So the point here is, thank you, all of you are correct in the direction. What is our nature? What does the soul wants? He wants Anand. In Bhakti language, we don't call it Anand. This is Jnani's language, Yogi's language. Although Anand would be used like this, we call Rasa. It's not Anand. Anand is a subset of Rasa, I would put it this way. So, the need for the soul is Rasa. Param Drashtva, I've spoken about this in the past also, I believe, at length. So Rasa, so through the process, when we apply ourselves properly, then Rasa begins to manifest. When you develop higher taste, lower taste automatically goes away. That is Bhakti Ras versus Bhautik Ras. Nectar devotion, preface, I'm talking about right now. That's what Prabhupada writes in the preface. Na? What is the difference between Bhakti Ras and Bhautik Ras? Two things he says about Bhautik Ras. Anyone remember? Nectar devotion, preface. Two things he says. Bhautik Rasa. All the Bhakti Shastri holders you tell, otherwise I'm withdrawing your certificate right away. You don't remember the preface of Nectar devotion? Bhautik Ras. Flickering, Bhoga and Tyaga. So Bhoga means you try to enjoy it, but doesn't give you gratification, and then you want to give it up. Other thing is fleeting. It's temporary. It doesn't last. So that's the whole idea. And therefore, see what Prabhupada writes. The bhaktas, by their transcendental devotional service unto the lotus feet of the Lord, become so overwhelmed with transcendental bliss that automatically their desires for material enjoyment stop. We all are here because of that. Somewhere those changes have happened. We have had that experience. And then Prabhupada talks about Jnanis and Yogis. They are described in this verse as Rikta Mataya, which means devoid of devotional service, and the word Jnanis, Yogis, okay? Okay, next paragraph. Here also the same point is stressed after the verse. Bhaja Vasudeva indicates Devam, indicates one who is engaged in loving service. Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, can very easily stop the waves of desire. As long as one continues to try to artificially stop the waves of desire, he will certainly be defeated. So, what a devotee needs to do to stop the waves of desire? Rasa is the need of the heart, rasa is the need of the soul. What a devotee needs to do? To experience rasa, to receive rasa. Therefore, we have to keep on increasing our service contribution, which means chant more, hear more. That's part of bhajana, and Krishnanandi engage in more devotional service. And that's how you get that rasa. That's the point here. So everything that a devotee does, which is 2 point, Ritesh was coming continually. Point is, see how as we're moving forward, how much we are able to contribute more. Engage more. Madan, in the terms of our time and energy. The more you do so, the more our connect with the material energy will be less. This is indicated in the verse, desires for fruitive activities are strongly rooted, but the trees of desires can be uprooted completely by devotional service. Because devotional service employs superior desire, about which Mother Shama Vallavi was making a point to please Guru and Gauranga. One can give up inferior desires when engaged in superior desire. Same, Paramdashra Nivartate. To try to stop desire is impossible and has to desire the supreme in order not to be entangled in inferior desires. Jnanis maintain a desire to become one, but such desire is considered kama. Similarly, yogis desire mystic power, that is also kama. Bhaktas not being desire of any sort of material enjoyment become purified. There is no artificial attempt to stop desire. Desire becomes a source of spiritual enjoyment under the protection of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord. It is stated in by the Kumaras that the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna are the ultimate reservoir of all pleasure. One should therefore take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord instead of trying unsuccessfully to stop desires for material enjoyment. Important point. As long as one is unable to stop the desire for material enjoyment, please note, there is no possibility of becoming liberated from the entanglement of material existence. It may be argued that the waves of river are incessantly flowing and that they cannot be stopped. But the waves of the river flow toward the sea. When the tide comes over the river, it overwhelms the flowing of the river, and the river itself becomes overflooded, and the waves from the sea become more prominent than the waves from the river. Similarly, a devotee with intelligence plans so many things. You see, strategize, mold your life. Each one of us have to plan for ourselves. It doesn't matter you're grasta, vanaprastha, sannyasi, brahmachari. Similarly, a devotee, and therefore go back to Ishopanishad when I had a discussion about taking initiative. It's very important for all of us to take initiative. How I can serve more, how I can contribute more. This is the thing. Similarly, devotee with intelligence plans so many things for the service of the Lord. In Krishna consciousness, that stagnant material desire becomes overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. And the classic example which we all have experienced, at least for all of you, I can say one instance in a year is Janmashtami celebration, particularly 1 or 2 days. How many of you agree you're so much caught up with services, there's no thought of anything? Although physically it may be taxing and tiring, mentally it is very relaxing and peaceful. How many of you had that experience? Please raise your hand. We've experienced it. So therefore we have to plan. And therefore, brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, those who are above 45 years or approaching 45, they should start planning for their retirement. They should set a time. This is the time and work towards it. This is what my financial needs would be. This is what my needs for the family and so forth. So, I retire, which means you're preparing yourself to full time dedicate yourself. So that 100% I can now serve the Lord. So this is what it is. Similarly, devotee with intelligence plans so many things for the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness, the stagnant mental desires become overflooded. As confirmed by Yamunacharya, since he has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, there is always a current of newer and newer desires flowing to serve the Lord. So much so that the stagnant desire of sex life becomes very insignificant, and it is a fact. This is a homework I will give you. Think about it, how in this degraded Kali Yuga, ISKCON as an institution still able to survive brahmacharis. कोई brahmachari आसमान से तो टपके नहीं है. Brahmacharis are also, we all are same, have come from the same background. Of course, there would be a little bit different than a samskara, karma from past life, whatever could be. Such a temptation and things like this. I always ask this question. How, if you want to understand the power of bhakti, you can just think about how brahmacharis are surviving. Now, for most of other organizations, brahmacharis are not the city dwellers. For example, let's say, you talk about our, kya naam hai, Sadhguru ji. Somewhere in the forest, he has this isolated big place. All brahmacharis stay there. Many of them would have setups like this. But as ISKCON largely is not only in India, India to chalo fir bhi okay. West. I mean, it's a pathetic place, yeah, really, to be a brahmachari in the West. I was literally in Europe. It's a terrible place. How are they able to manage? How are they able to survive? It's just service. They engage in service, challenging service. So they have no time only. Ideally, brahmachari life is such, you're serving so much. By the end of the day, you don't have to think of sleeping. You fall asleep. It's not you're planning to sleep. हाँ अभी 9 बज गया मैं सोऊंगा, अभी मैं बिस्तर लगाऊंगा, अभी मैं लेटूंगा, अभी मैं सोऊंगा. नहीं, अब सो गए. Now when life becomes like this, brahmachari life is safe. Otherwise, how would you save yourself in these temptations? So those idea of stay back, of course, reading, hearing has to be there. We have all the culture of brahmachari and training and all that. But brahmachari ashram cannot be sustained. Brahmacharis cannot be sustained like that. Finally, so current of newer and newer desires flowing to serve the Lord. Yamunacharya even says that he spits on such desires. Really? Spits on sex life? Papare. Bhagavad Gita also confirms Param Drishtva Nivartate. The conclusion is that by developing a loving desire for the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, we subdue all material desires for sense gratification. Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sanat Kumar ji ki jai. Four Kumaras ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I went overboard. I took extra time. So we'll continue. Tomorrow we'll have another class. Friday we may not have class because I've got some other engagements Friday morning. And I'm not sure about next week. But at least I'll know tomorrow also, not sure. We'll see if we can cover tomorrow the chapter. But this was a very important chapter, so I thought we'll spend some time. I'm doing it for my sake, so that at least along with you I get to read. Hare Krishna. Any question, any comments? All right, we conclude here. Hand is up. Yeah, go ahead. Who has a question?
Yeah, Ram Vallabhi here, Prabhuji.
Yes, mother.
So, Prabhuji, we were talking about this material desires. So, this material desires are of various levels as well, we can say, because somebody may have desire to have a gulab jamun, or somebody may want fame.
Goodness,
and
passion, ignorance. Those are the
Yeah.
categories.
So there are levels of these desires. Are all these desires binding and harmful, or does it depend upon our attachment to these desires?
Very, 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 very question. What matters is our attachment, not the desire itself. Attachment means the hankering.
Yeah. That means we can have many desires, but the point is that if we are attached to them, then we are bound to them, and then it's not good for our spiritual life. That is what you mean?
Yeah, so the point is not that we can have many desires. It's not that we are trying to cultivate desires. The point is we have desires. Desires not of this lifetime, for millions of lifetimes. And desires like waves will keep on flowing.
Okay.
But getting attached to it is a problem. The problem is we are attached to it already. Because we are in the bodily concept, like as long as we are under the modes of material nature, somebody who is under tamoguna, he'll get attached to things like that. It's not that, for example, let's say you're traveling and you see a smoking head. It's not that you're not going to see the smoke head. But when you see that, somebody in goodness will not have any desire to or hankering to have it. But somebody in mode of ignorance will develop hankering for it. So like that it continues on. So as long as we are in the modes of material nature, there is always a risk. Even in mode of goodness we'll have. Like you said, gulab jamun. Imagine Giriraj Mishtan Bhandar, Govardhan. I mean, I can confess, I made a mistake. I didn't knew. I thought all the sweets are offered. So one devotee brought the sweet because I was not going to Pandal in the morning hours. I used to go generally for lunch or evening. So one devotee came to meet me, brought sweet, and I was hungry. On top of it, Giriraj Mishtan Bhandar and the speciality of it. And I assumed until now that it used to be offered. And I took the sweet. And later on, he left the sweet box in my room for me. Later in the day, I was just looking at the sweet box. उसमें ऊपर साफ साफ लिखा हुआ था, कृपा करके भोग अर्पण करके खाएं. मैंने कहा, ओए, I thought it is offered. It's not offered. The one which is prepared on the counter, that Krishna willing is offered, I believe. I don't know about it. But the one which comes from inside is not offered. They write on the dibba itself. Anyways, I was just making a point. So yeah, you're hungry, whatever it is, then you can't resist it, you have it. So one, that desire can also be. Of course, we are full of desires, there's no end to it. Engage in service. That's one easy method. Mother, that helps?
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna.